Hey, it's Aaron,
And I'm Sarah.
and this is 31 Nights of Scary Shit. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
All right, well, this evening, I keep saying that.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, I know, it's
You gotta be theatrical with it.
good evening. That's now my
There you go.
signature.
I'm down with it.
That's now my signature. Anyways, I realize once again that you might not be listening to this in the evening, but I am currently bringing
In the evening.
Yes, I'm currently bringing you information in the evening. So, this particular discussion is going to be about a truly terrifying character in history. This is Madame Delphine LaLaurie.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So,
Oh gosh.
I have to say, and maybe we should have been saying this at the beginning of other episodes.
Spoiler? Is it like disclaimer? This is a heavy episode.
Yeah,
Trigger warning.
Yeah, like maybe that should have been said. Like, it's if
I
you
feel like if you click on the podcast 31 Nights of
Yeah,
Scary Shit,
yeah.
and you expect it to be about fuzzy rainbows.
Yeah.
You're
I guess the reason I'm saying it is because when I was reading some of the details, normally I'm not really squeamish if I'm just reading, but then I also listened to a podcast that mentioned it, and hearing the details coming out of someone else's mouth was really pretty disgusting. So
yeah, it's like off-putting.
yeah, so I'm almost like when I'm reading it, I don't know. I'm probably gonna choke on the words a little bit, but I do want to mention that there are some reports that say that the tale has grown taller over time. That yes, she definitely was a horrific person who inflicted horrific abuse and things like that. But for purposes of kind of folklore, some people believe that maybe it did get highly exaggerated, which is not an excuse. It's not me making any sort of excuse for her, but some of the details might be a bit embellished. But anyway, so Madam,
Like with any tall tale.
yeah, I mean, but I'm telling
There
you,
is a kernel of truth, and it's probably really horrific. And then someone was like, you know what? I bet you she also did this other horrific stuff.
yeah, I mean, she's definitely within the same category. If she did the things that are described specifically, she's definitely in the same category as, say, a Jeffrey Dahmer and Ed Gein. Yeah.
Oh, this is not going to be a fun episode.
I mean, I'm going to start with the stuff that's actually kind of boring. But anyway, so
Oh, I'm cool with boring.
yeah, so I did use several sources. So one was Ghost City Tours, which is
Sounds solid.
yeah, well, it's New Orleans, so it's a site that delves into the different tours that they do in New Orleans, and it's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty in depth, but
Nice.
I also used All That's Interesting and a site I have not used before called Vice.com,
Ooh, yeah,
which
I love
actually
Vice.
which actually gave me some pretty specific information.
I'm talking about these things like they're like the New York Times. I do love certain websites for good, scary shit.
For our purposes, they are the New York Times,
Yes.
So Madame LaLaurie, she was born Marie Delphine McCarty on March 19th, 1787, and she was born to wealthy white Creole parents. Delphine's ancestors had originally come from Ireland, so the generation before her, and then they moved to New Orleans when it was controlled by Spain.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. The McCarty men traditionally were they had military backgrounds. They were wealthy landowners. And Delphine's father, Louis Bartolome de McCarty. I'm gonna murder these names because these people have like 16 names.
Yeah, 16 names, and there's 16. I'm not gonna say weird names because that's not what I mean. 16 names that we are not familiar with pronouncing correctly.
They don't roll off the tongue, and I'm usually
they do if you know how to say them, but we don't say them, so we don't know how to say them.
So I don't mean any.
We're trying, people. We are trying.
I don't mean any of it disrespectfully. I just really can't pronounce these damn names. So a lot of them are French. Some have a touch of Spanish in them. So I'm gonna do the best I can. But anyways, her father, Louis. He was actually knighted as the Chevalier of the Royal and Military Order of St. Louis, or of St. Louis.
Is it St. Louis or is it St. Louis? I guess it depends.
Anyways, the family had a 1,344 acre plantation by 1794. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Because when I grew up, we had like maybe a 3 acre. We lived on like 3 acres, and I thought it was big. It was like a lot. It was like a lot of grass to mow. Let's put it that way. You know.
Let me put it to you this way: That's a little bit of my stepdad for you. That phrase. Let me put it to you this way. I never grew up on that much land, I don't think. I mean, I don't know how much an acre is because I don't understand how much an acre is. But like, I lived in a townhouse that's definitely not even close to an acre,
No, I mean, I don't even
right?
know. I don't even. Yeah, I don't even. No, it's not. I don't
It's
even know.
small.
Yeah, I don't even
So
know
I
what
can't even
to.
fathom that amount of space.
Yeah, I can't. I can't liken it to anything. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna say where I grew up, we had about 3 acres, and again, it was a lot. It was a lot of
Yeah.
grass to cut. Anyway, so by 1794, they had this rather large plantation, and it was next door to Count Pierre Philippe Mandeville de Marigny. Hey, I said that one all right.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Solid.
So they lived next door to a wealthy man.
A wealthy guy with a bunch of
A
names.
bunch of names, yes.
Good for him.
Delphine's mother was known for giving parties, as was
Cool.
Delphine in her young adulthood as well. And her mother was known to be very fun loving. She liked to play pranks. So their house was kind of the place to go for.
So where did it all go wrong for Delphine?
It was a long time
It's a
after
long
this.
time coming, man.
Honestly, it doesn't sound like Delphine was always messed up. I'm not really sure what happened, but I
I
won't go into
actually
that.
don't know if I feel better about that.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I don't know, but I
I'm not
have.
saying I feel good about anything, but like any of the things that we've talked about, but like,
I have a theory on what could have happened, and it might be a bit far fetched, but I'm still going to mention it at some point.
mhm.
So, anyways, Delphine's mother passed away in 1807, and Delphine's father, Louis, he entered into a long term relationship with Sophie Moussant, who was a quadroon, is what she was called. Which, if you look at the definition, it meant she was a quarter black. I guess is the percentage for
Is
that.
that a real word?
Yeah,
I'm googling it.
yeah, I know. I'd never heard that term before, so again, this is me getting the information from the sources. But anyway, Sophie Moussant also had a daughter in 1815, and she named that daughter Delphine.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
Sorry, I just obviously went to my favorite source, Wikipedia.
yeah.
Um, Fascinating. I don't understand. It just doesn't seem like a good situation.
But anyway, the McCarty men were, it was typical for them to get involved with free women of color. And many of them had children with free women of color. So Delphine's father had a child named Delphine Embassy McCarty.
Wait a second. So, how wait, were they, but they were in the South
Yep.
and they were free, but this was
It
before.
was different in Louisiana. There was
Oh.
there was a different. I'm just finding this out now. The mindset was a bit different. They even had a code that prohibited excessively brutal treatment of slaves, whereas they really didn't in the other.
That has to be like the French or Spanish influence.
Yes, it was.
Okay, because I'm
Yeah,
like, that doesn't make any fucking
it was a
sense. Because
French.
that is like solidly the South.
It was French influence, and then the Spanish actually added more onto it. So yeah, it was.
Sorry, I just was very distracted by the fact of like, that just seemed oxymoronic for the time.
Yeah, it's a bit different there. So anyway, so this child, actually Delphine, Madame LaLaurie, and her brother Louis. There's too many Louis. They
Yeah.
actually were godparents to this child, so she's essentially the godmother to her own half sister. But anyways,
Weird.
yeah, and I'll talk about that a bit later too, because Delphine, by all accounts, was okay with this half sister. Didn't seem to be any animosity or anything like that. So when we talk about her motivations for why she was so awful to her slaves, I don't necessarily know it was a racially motivated thing. But
I would argue it probably was.
I don't think that was all of it.
I mean, then she would have done it to white people. I think it was convenience. They're
Yeah.
convenient victims.
Well, yeah, I'll get it.
Yeah.
I'll get into all that. So, according to records, like I said, it was common for the McCarty men to have relationships with free women of color. So there were a lot of children fathered in the McCarty family in this manner. Anyway, Delphine was married 3 times. I'll talk about each of the husbands, but she was 14 when she married the first one, roughly around 14. He was about 35.
Gross.
His name was Ramon Lopez Angalo, and he was an officer for the Spanish crown. He was a widower at the time. And he was
He
pretty,
was a widower and he
yeah,
married a 14-year-old.
yeah. I mean, he was pretty important at the time. He was second in command to the Louisiana governor. He did die though in 1805 unexpectedly because while he was traveling from Bordeaux to Havana, his ship
His shit.
his shit hit a sandbar. No, not his shit, his ship. His vessel hit a sandbar, and he died. Well, Delphine was pregnant at the time, and she'd been waiting for him in Havana. So she gives birth. She's a widow now, a very young widow, and she gives birth to her first child, Maria Delphine Francesca Borgia.
Is this the one that's called
I think it is. I think it is.
Or Borquita?
I don't know. It sounds
Borquita?
sometimes it sounds like she's saying Borquita, and sometimes it sounds like Borgita, but I think it is.
I guess okay. So obviously, LaLaurie is an American Horror Story. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. Please watch it. That's our
Yeah, and I'll talk a
recommendation.
little bit about that too, as compared to factual and
Yeah.
some of the things that happen in there too. So, anyways, Delphine is a young widow. She has now had a child, and she does return to New Orleans. In 1807, she's 20 years old. She marries Jean Paul Blanc, and she has 4 children with him. He's also a widower.
Well, widowers.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Delphine has inherited $33,000. Her mother, part of her mother's inheritance, so she inherits $33,000. She gets a downtown plantation on the bank.
Which in today's money is $4.6 million. I don't know if that's true.
It's millions of dollars.
It's definitely a lot of money.
I think it's millions of dollars.
Oh, sweet.
She gets a downtown plantation on the bank of the Mississippi River. She also gets 52 slaves, livestock.
Yeah, so I would argue that the murdering of the slaves
and farm equipment. I don't know that the whole
charged.
I don't know the whole time that she maintains that many slaves.
That's a lot of slaves.
Yeah, I don't think all of them.
Also, I don't know an average amount of slaves because I think slavery is awful and I wasn't alive. But it seems like an awful lot of slaves, and it seems odd if you have like biracial like family members for you to. I guess it's the time. I don't understand it because it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to.
Human slavery doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around slavery while also learning about LaLaurie. It's just not a good. It's not a good combo.
Anyway, I don't know if she keeps that many at any given time for any length of time, but that's what she got as part of inheritance. She also got farm equipment. Her husband Blanc was also pretty wealthy in his own right, and he was also active in the slave trade. He was also apparently associated with the notorious pirate brothers Jean and Pierre Lafitte. But I didn't really go into all that. I don't know if that I don't know if that went anywhere, if anything really came of that. But
I'd be okay with a pirate subplot.
But he sounded a little shady to me. But anyways, Delphine's father. I mean, in addition, I mean they have so much land. Delphine's father also gives them another plantation. So what is that now? 2, 3 plantations?
I thought it was 4.
Property on Charles Street and 26 more slaves. And I guess by today's value, yes. Apparently, her inheritance with counting in the slaves and all the land was about $2 million. So she's got a lot of money, definitely at this point. Blanc then purchases a home on Royal and Conti next to the Bank of Louisiana. He's a director at that bank. So Delphine, as I said, they had 4 children, and they seem to be the couple living the life, the glamorous life. Blanc then dies at about age 50. Delphine is about 28 at this time, but Blanc had racked up about $160,000 in debt.
Holy shit!
Yeah, I didn't really go into
that's millions of dollars.
I didn't really go into how that happened, but anyway, she was responsible for having to pay it off. So she started auctioning off a lot of their belongings, their assets. Over the next decade, she struggled to pay off his debts, so she was auctioning off property and slaves. So there's where a lot of those slaves, slaves were gone as a result of having to pay off her.
Yeah, because unfortunately, slaves were currency.
Yeah, her dead husband's debts. She did manage to buy back one of his properties and some of the slaves.
Yeah, she's definitely got to make sure she does that, I guess. Oh my god, this lady.
And curiously, I don't even know if this really amounts to anything. Curiously, 8 of those slaves that she owned died in a 5-year period, and all of them had causes of death that were unknown. Now, here's the thing. I I don't know that that was so unusual because I don't know what the record keeping was. And again, we're assuming kind
Yeah,
of
record keeping is a big part, I
we're
would
kind of
imagine.
assuming that, I mean, given what we've heard about slavery and other places in the South, I don't know that that was priority really to record how they died. So
No.
I don't know that that necessarily means anything shady
They
happened.
didn't
But
they didn't even think they were human beings. Why would they
yeah,
record how they died?
well, I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
I know. I'm just saying it. There was a hinting in my source of curiously they died and the causes were unknown, and I'm like, well, but I don't know
Yeah.
that that would have really been documented well. But
Yeah, you're right.
anyways, so in 1825, now she inherits more money because her father dies.
Jesus.
So she inherits
Jesus.
5,000 more dollars and two more slaves. I can't keep track of the slaves anymore. She's gained, she's lost. I don't know, but let's just put it this way: she's got a shit ton of money
And a shit ton of
and a
slaves
shit ton
and
of
a
slaves.
murderous attitude.
Yeah. Now
Torturous.
I will say that prior to marrying husband number three, there don't seem to be any records of her doing anything
Violent?
crazy or torturous. There don't seem to be. Okay.
She never had like an outburst
I
or
can't find anything to I can't
interesting.
find anything that suggests that at all.
I wonder what happened.
So she's about 38 when she marries husband number three.
Okay, all of this shit happened in her life and she's only now 38?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So her husband, Leonard Louis Nicholas LaLaurie, he's about 15 years younger than she is. So he's like early 20s.
Ah, cradle robber.
Yeah, and he
Get it, girl.
and she right now, I mean, she's just independently wealthy at this point, so she's just pretty much like chilling. She doesn't really need him, but she marries him. He's a chiropractor. I didn't know chiropractic was really much of a recognized
Wow.
practice then, but apparently one of her children needed some like straightening out of the back or something, and that's how they met, and then they took up a romance or something like that.
That sounds made up.
I don't know.
That's the part of the story.
Yeah. So anyways, she gets pregnant with Louis's baby before they're married. They do get married, and they have a son, Jean-Louis Leonard LaLaurie, which I don't know much about. I didn't find much about this son. I don't really know.
I do want to commend you on the pronunciation. That was, I think that was the best one yet.
Well, that's a pretty easy one.
Yeah, but I'm going to give you a compliment. Take the damn compliment.
All right. That one's pretty easy. So when she marries Louis, her third husband, she is worth about $66,000. Again, still a crap ton of money.
That's like $4.6 million.
I would say it's definitely millions. Reports say that the marriage was not happy. Shocker. It's reported they often fought and then they would separate, get back together, separate, get back together. So there was some of that going on, which is curious, and I'll mention why I think that's curious soon. In 1831, Delphine purchased the now infamous LaLaurie mansion on 1140 Royal Street in the French Quarter. Delphine kept slaves, as many did. Reports say she was extremely polite to blacks in public and spoke kindly to her own slaves in the presence of others. When she had parties, people actually commented on how pleasant and sweet and wonderful she was, and that she seemed to be particularly kind.
Oh, so she's putting on a damn front while she's murdering them behind closed doors.
Keep in mind, too, I think she was one that was very good at keeping up appearances. First of all, she was seen as beautiful and eloquent. She was like her mother, only her mother, as far as I know, didn't torture anybody. But she was very beautiful, very poised, manners, intelligent. She had it all. She was just
Kathy Bates.
She was just, yeah.
Kathy Bates in a nutshell.
So Kathy Bates in a nutshell. Yeah, I mean, in terms of good acting, absolutely. So I think that people saw her as like, oh my gosh, of course not. She's above reproach. But anyway, she did at one point actually emancipate two of her slaves.
I'm going to call shenanigans on that.
No, she really did. It's proven. No,
really?
No, she really did. Yeah.
What the shit? This woman is a conundrum.
I think that there was a legal reason she had to.
Oh.
For one of them, like, I can't remember exactly what it was. One, it might have just been due to their age or something. I can't remember, but there was a reason why she actually did. But again, she didn't put up a fight about anything. She was like, oh, you've done wonderful service, and off you go. In 1832, Delphine petitions for divorce. She claimed that Louis had beaten her in front of witnesses. That's never necessarily corroborated. And it says that he moved out into a new residence. But here's the thing. When the fire breaks out in 1834, he's there. So I don't know, like...
Is he moving out, moving in frequently?
Showing up for a booty call or what's happening, because he's there when the fires break out. And I don't even know that, I mean, and even for a time after, so I don't even know when that divorce is actually final. But anyways, so when the LaLaurie mansion catches fire in 1834, disturbing secrets are revealed. Judge Jacques Francois is a neighbor who first arrives at the scene of the mansion. Neighbors that were concerned were helping the LaLauries transfer their valuables to safekeeping, just in case the fire that began in the kitchen would happen to spread. One of the theories is that one of that a cook that had been chained in the kitchen, chained to the stove. One of the theories is that the cook started the fire. I don't know if that was ever proven, but that's what they think may have happened. Um, the neighbors come in and they go, where are all your slaves? They're like, we just see you and Dr. LaLaurie. They're kind of like, where are all these servants, you know? So they find it odd and they start searching in the house because they're like, hey, the house is on fire. We really need to get your servants, your slaves out of here.
And what are they doing?
And Dr. LaLaurie says to the judge, this is an exact quote, there are those who would be better employed if they attend to their own affairs instead of officiously intermeddling with the concerns of other people. And I'm like, why don't you just say none of your business? Why do you got to say all that? So Dr. LaLaurie is basically like, stay out of her business, shut up. Don't be looking for the slave. So,
ooh. So he knew.
Neighbors, this is, and again, none of this is really absolutely corroborated. These are just, you know,
tellings after the fact.
Yeah. A lot of this could have been exaggerated or not really. Anyway, so neighbors began to investigate. They start searching the house, and one thing that for sure I think actually is accurate is they locate at least 7 slaves who've been brutally tortured and starved in an attic room above the kitchen. So there are at least 7 that they locate and they rescue that were alive. Now, I want to mention this. So there were laws in Louisiana called the Code Noir that actually dictated against cruel and unusual punishment towards slaves. So you were allowed to, you know, flog a slave, but you couldn't do anything that was excessive. So like beating them within an inch of their life, or like, you know, cutting them and that kind.
That's awfully subjective, though.
But what I'm saying is there were things that were considered. I'm uncomfortable talking about it because obviously all of it's bullshit and all that. But what I'm saying is there were things that you could do that would actually get you fined, and she does get fined because there are neighbors that rat her out for things. So
like before this happens.
Yeah. So
okay. So it's not like, because I don't know the real actual story. I've only watched American Horror Story, and that's obviously fictionalized. But like, it's not like she just has to pay a fine for killing a bunch of slaves, right? Does she do jail time? Because if she doesn't do jail time, no, that is a completely subjective racist law.
No. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, there were people prior to them discovering all this crazy stuff when the fire went out. There were people that were kind of like telling on her and being like, something's not right there.
Yeah, it's just one of those things of like, yeah, that was the best that racists could do at the time.
And they did send,
you know, that was their capacity at the time.
Well, they did send somebody over, a lawyer over, to kind of check up on her and say, you know, I want to remind you, because I've been hearing some things, that this is what happens if you don't follow the law. So there were people that were kind of checking up, but
not well enough. And again,
she was apparently just, again, she's one of those very charming people. Oh, you know, everything's fine, and they just, okay, you know, we'll just kind of look the other way.
Just black people. That's what they were saying.
So, anyways, here's where the details are. I mean, she's one sick twist. Some of these things are just even hard to say. But I do want to say, as a disclaimer here, some of these things, I think probably the tail has grown taller down the line, but still. So, some of the things that are found are heads of corpses, you know, obviously not attached to the corpses, organs and limbs that are removed from the body, slaves pinned to tables or cramped into small cages, live bodies who have had their eyes gouged out, fingernails torn out, ears hanging by shreds of their skin, mouths sewn shut and filled with animal feces, skin flayed with festering wounds. That really gets me. One woman's skin had been this is where I don't know if this really happened, because this is awfully specific and creative. One woman's skin had been peeled off in spirals to make her look like almost like a caterpillar. An-
Ooh.
Another with bones broken and then reset that she kind of looked like a crab. I mean, I know. And
Whoa.
then one more whose intestines had been torn out and knotted around the waist.
I could see that.
Also, there were victims with holes in their skulls, and a wooden spoon was nearby to stir their brains. That did appear in American Horror Story. Remember the scene where one of the daughters has a new boyfriend, and she takes him down into the basement, and she basically shows him the festering the festering pot, and there's a spoon, and the spoon is there to stir the inside of somebody's brains.
I do not remember this at all.
Yeah, it. I don't think I paid much attention to it the first time I watched it, but now I'm like, oh my god, that's the thing they were talking about. Yeah, so
Ew.
yeah. One theory is that Lewis, her husband, was experimenting with voodoo potions and that he was actually performing some weird kind of medical experiments on the slaves. It's not proven though, almost like Nazi style. You know, he's doing medical experiments.
Just another white man getting away with torturing black
Yeah.
people.
Needless to say, that's never really proven. One thing that is agreed upon, though, is at least 7 slaves were found badly mutilated, starved, and they were wearing iron collars with inward-facing spikes.
Oh.
But my research says that that actually might have been allowed depending on the circumstances.
Okay, so let's call some bullshit on that
I don't
law in Louisiana about not
I don't
being
know.
cruel and unusual. Like, I'm sorry. Inward-facing spikes.
I don't know.
Inward-facing
Even
spikes.
though it might have been okay, even though that might have been considered okay, there were still people who would have seen that and been like, what the hell? Like, seriously, are you really doing that? Like,
Well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
I mean, logical people have existed
yeah.
for all of eternity, but
And-
it still doesn't negate the fact that that's
Yeah.
cruel and unusual and horrible. You're treating them less than human.
Depending on who was telling the story, it was either a few handfuls of slaves were found or it was hundreds regardless. So again, we don't
Yeah.
really know for sure the actual number.
We didn't keep track of how many slaves she actually had in all this, like,
We couldn't.
situation.
I don't-
So
Exactly.
she could have had hundreds, but I feel like someone would have noticed.
There were
Beforehand.
reports that one of the male slaves actually threw himself out of the 3rd-story window because he felt death was better than the torture Delphine was going to inflict upon him. And then a 12-year-old girl named Leah was brushing Delphine's hair.
Oh.
She hit a snag. Delphine chased her. She whipped her, she chased her, and the girl jumped off of the same 3rd floor in order to escape punishment. Now, this is where Delphine got in some trouble because she was fined $300 for Leah's death because some people saw her burying Leah. And she also, at that point, had to sell back all of her slaves. So she had 9 slaves that she sold back at that point. However, there's a relative with some pull who actually is able to like buy back the slaves for her and then give her back her slaves.
So I've got so many problems with that, but this is not a podcast about slavery and how horrible it was, so let's just leave it at $300 is the value of a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Literally insanity, but anyway, that's horrible. She's horrible.
Yeah, she is. Once the slaves were discovered in her house of horrors, supposedly, and again, this might be exaggerated, there was a mob. There was a mob of people.
Good.
And this says 4,000, but I find that
that
kind of hard to
might
believe.
be
I don't know.
excessive.
I checked this in about 3 or 4 different sources that all said like 4,000, but still I find that a lot. They actually ransacked the home. They broke the windows, and they were basically saying, where is this bitch? We want her to come out. Madame LaLaurie actually escaped somehow. And you remember how she mentions her servant Bastien in American Horror Story, the one that she like put the weird like
turned into a minotaur. Yes.
Yeah. She actually escapes with her servant Bastien. So he like helps.
I got questions.
I know. He helps her flee. She was never seen again.
And shut the fuck up.
No, some people will think that she died in Paris in 1842. Then some say it was 1849. It's almost like she's one of those Nazi war criminals that disappears in Argentina, but she's never really definitively tracked again. Some people think that she never left and like just hid under an assumed name. I don't think that's possible. I think she would have been found. I think she probably went to Paris. Somehow she got there, but the date of her death is very questionable. But no, she's never seen in New Orleans again, supposedly. So she's never brought to any kind of justice for it. So her actual body is never located. It's weird,
She could
right?
still be alive.
She could still be alive. Yes. Okay, so people have asked, well, what would motivate this kind of treatment of her slaves? So one thing I do want to mention is at this time, there's a lot of paranoia about slave revolts because this was happening and this was a thing in Louisiana. And there were instances of, you know, masters being killed by slaves. But apparently, there was a real huge sense of fear and paranoia surrounding this. A lot of it because of the practice of voodoo. So there was there were people who just took it to a level of at any minute they just believed that they were going to be killed by their slaves. And of course, there's no reason to suggest that Delphine ever had any reason to really fear anything happening. They tried to make up a story that her mother was murdered by slaves. That's not true. Her mom died of natural causes. There was someone in the family many years before that had been killed by one of their slaves, but Delphine, there's really nothing to suggest that really she had that kind of a fear. So, um, and the fact that she was doing all if these things are true, these things with the taking out organs and limbs and that sounds like a level of disturbed. I don't know. I mean, that sounds like a mental illness almost. I mean, I'm not saying that she didn't have any racism in her, but like there's something.
Okay, so I'm just gonna listen. She owned slaves. She was racist. I'm sorry. If you own slaves, in my opinion, you were racist. She chose to to torture only black people.
Okay, I'm not trying to say she wasn't
Yeah.
racist. I'm saying that there also exists some kind of. I think she was
I mean, yeah, because most people don't torture and kill people.
right. I mean,
Clearly, something was not right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's something mentally wrong with her in addition to her
Yeah.
being racially motivated. But
Yeah, because racism is not a mental illness. You are
no,
right. That is correct.
yeah. The weird thing is though, so she has
But
this.
not all mentally ill people torture and kill people. It is such a conundrum,
Yeah,
the human brain.
I'm just saying the stuff she does. That sounds like some Dahmer shit. You know, it's like
Yeah, but Dahmer was also kind of racist.
was yeah.
Yeah. He only killed, he didn't kill white guys.
I don't
He
know.
killed Asians and black guys, I think.
No, I don't remember much about his.
Let's look up Dahmer real quick, because, spoiler alert, we're not covering Dahmer this month. Oh, man.
But interestingly,
Yeah.
remember I mentioned she had a like a half sister.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she never cut her off. It seemed like she continued to like, reward her financially. Oh, and listen to this. She gifted her a slave.
Oh, yeah. That's a not self-aware human being.
No, and I wonder what the sister thought of that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't have much information on any of that whole offspring there, but apparently there were a lot of them. There were.
She probably, maybe it was like a guilt thing for her.
I have no
Maybe
idea.
there was a part of her that felt guilty, and she thought, oh, well, if I help the people that are close to me who are black, then I'm not doing horrible things to other people. I don't know. People are weird.
I don't know, but the bizarre thing is the rumors of her being so brutal and crazy only start after she married Louis, her third husband. So I don't know what happened there, if anything did.
Midlife crisis?
I don't know. I don't know.
Late in life psychotic break? Ooh,
I'm wondering. Again, I'm not trying to excuse her at all. It just seems like, how do you suddenly turn into that? You know,
she's a horrible person. She did horrible things, but it could have been a later in life psychotic break, or it could have been festering under the surface the whole time.
Maybe she definitely was a person who was she was like Jekyll and Hyde, man, because apparently there just weren't really any signs until they went in the house and found all that. So I also don't have much information on the daughters.
Yeah.
And only two of them, I think, were living with her at that time. I don't know if they got married and moved out or what happened, but apparently there were reports that if the daughters tried to help the slaves in any way or tried to feed them, that they also got beaten. So I don't know. Not really sure about that. So getting into the fact that this is part of the haunted house tour in New Orleans, I didn't find a whole lot of things that were compelling about paranormal activity, only that generally speaking, people who have gone into the home have experienced things like moaning noises, phantom footsteps. People who stand near the house feel like this negative energy. But I mean, I feel like in any place where a lot of murder has happened, you're going to feel that. But there were other incidents of murder that happened in this house. So, in 1894, there also was a man that was murdered at that home in his room. And he had told one of his friends that he was having problems with sprites in his house. And he also said there was a demon in the house who would not rest until he met his end. And then, in fact, he did die mysteriously.
Weird.
So he was
It's
murdered.
LaLaurie pretending to be
I
a
don't know
demon.
because they didn't find who killed him. So I don't know. Then the house was also a school for girls in the mid to late 19th century. Well, I know. Why did they make
Okay.
it into a school? Students would report that they had been attacked by, quote, that woman, and then they would have bruises and scratches on their forearms. I don't know. Those who have been tour guides that have gone into the house have said they felt a presence. Things like somebody like kind of prodding them or tugging on them. You know, they felt like they've been touched by a presence that wasn't there. And then one report was the tour guide was out in the street near some streetlights that had been burned out for some time. And the minute that she started talking about Leah, the dead slave, the lights all came back on the street at once. So that's kind of weird.
No, I don't like that.
That would have spooked me out. Had I been on that tour,
spooked me out. I would have shit myself.
Yeah, that really would have gotten me. Yeah, so anyway,
Wow.
Reading about her was pretty disturbing.
What a garbage person.
It was pretty disgusting. And yeah, I mean, she definitely doesn't fit the prototype of serial killer, but it's every bit as disgusting as some of the big ones. I mean, it's just
yeah, it's just so weird because she doesn't have any of like what you would consider like serial killer precursor.
No, she's just a
like
cruel,
warning
twisted
signs.
Yeah.
She's just a shitty person.
Cruel, twisted individual. There's no reports of anyone else in the family doing things like that either. You know what I mean? It's
so
not like you
weird.
heard of uncles or you know, you don't hear of anybody else in the family doing that.
Where would she have gotten that?
I don't know. I do think that there was something seriously mentally wrong with her in addition to her
being a horrible person.
And of course anyone, as you said, you know, having slaves is obviously going to be a racist.
Oh, yeah.
I just found it
you were making the distinction of like she was racist, but she also like not every racist person is torturing people.
Right. Yeah, because
I can't believe I'm defending racist people. I'm not, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, but even people, even other slave owners were raising their eyebrows, going, "Ma'am, you can't do that." Like, like this is a level of effed up that like we don't condone. So that's pretty bad. I mean,
yeah, when the shitty people are telling you you're too shitty,
yeah,
it's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. That's like as low as you possibly can get.
Yeah. I hate to say it, I was hoping to find out some spookier stuff about, you know, hauntings and that attributed to it, but I got caught up, I guess, in the horribleness that was her life.
Yeah. I mean, she seemed to have a relatively good life.
She did
until she fucked it up for herself.
She had a great life.
I mean, minus the husband dying and stuff.
Yeah.
But still, I mean,
yeah. I mean, she really had the glamorous life, really. So
yeah. Yeah. It's just so weird. But sorry to yawn, friends. I'm not bored. It's just it's 7:45 on a school night, so I'm like my head is a little fuzzy. But anyway, so that was awesome. I learned so much about that. I have clearly only watched American Horror Story and have no other context.
Oh, well, given from what I researched, most of that is pretty dang accurate, other than Madame LaLaurie is not
immortal.
It's not dug up from the ground and then brought back to our time. But like,
what if she?
But like her and Marie, like Marie Laveau, it's not really proven that they had any kind of a friendship. But Marie Laveau lived nearby.
Yeah, and they were alive at the same.
time. But it's not clear whether or not they probably knew each other. But I don't know that they were really that well acquainted. Yeah. So I did wonder about some of those things. And in the show, my God, man, she's terrible to her daughters. Like
horrible.
The reports that I found said that she was pretty loving toward her daughters, but then again, she was also nice to slaves, right? But in the show, my God, she just degrades them. She calls them ugly. She calls them stupid. The one
she kills, not kills. Well, she tortures one of them.
Yeah, she puts them in the cage, and then she like threatens to put the feces in one of the daughters' mouth and sew it shut. So like she's portrayed very brutally toward her own children in the show.
I mean, it's a fairly accurate depiction then.
I think it's fairly accurate, yeah.
But, like, I didn't know all that other stuff before. Like, I thought she was just like that her whole life. And, like, clearly that's not true. Or she hid it from everyone. Who the hell knows?
That's probably more likely that she was hiding it. Again, yeah, I don't think you can just turn into that. That's outrageous.
You don't just turn into a horror.
Because, oh my god, if you can, I mean, shouldn't we all be afraid that we're gonna wake up one day and, like,
Aaron, you can't live your life in fear.
I'm gonna decide I'm gonna cut organs from people. No, I don't. I hope that doesn't happen. No.
Isn't that like you breathe a sigh of relief? I'm going to bring up a topic that's equally as controversial as what we've talked in this episode about. But, like, don't you wake up every day? Not every day, but don't you wake up sometimes and you go, thank God I'm not into insert horrible thing.
Oh, yeah.
You go, oh, thank God, like, my brain doesn't want me to be a pedophile.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm, like, thankful. Like, I honestly think, like, everyone should, like, thank God that they, or anyone that isn't that they're not a pedophile, that they don't have that, like, part of their brain. Because even serial killers, like, I know they talk about the serial killer gene and, like, all that stuff, and, like, nature versus nurture. I know I'm talking about that, but I feel like there's a predisposition to stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And there might be an inciting incident that causes it to get triggered. But I am so thankful that I did not either have that inciting incident happen for even being a murderer. You know what I mean? Or that I wasn't, born predisposed to it. I mean, for all we know, I am predisposed to it. Who knows? Maybe in a different life I would have been a serial killer. Maybe that's why I'm interested in it. Now we're getting into multiple realities, multiple lives, reincarnation.
That's
I don't know exactly what I'm talking
about.
Podcast. That is a whole other podcast. And then we go into an ad for a podcast that we don't have anymore, or don't have at all. But anyway, thanks for listening to our story about LaLaurie. If you want to keep listening to more stories, we're going to do this for the rest of the month. But, like, maybe send us an email? That'd be cool. Like, maybe, like, with a story, or, like, I don't know, you tell us how much you love listening to our podcast. I don't know.
Yes.
But you're going to send that to 31nightsofscaryshit@gmail.com. 31 the number, not the words, people. We didn't want to make this email any longer than it already is. 31nightsofscaryshit@gmail.com, and stay spooky.
Stay spooky, friends.
Bye, friends.